All right. Plus DJing, you can get one of those digital ones with the records that just have the tracks on it with just digital
Yeah,
markers.
but I think the thing is like sometimes you would want to get the one that can go both ways, right? The one where you could get just a DJ controller where it's like you can't
Yeah.
put a vinyl on it. It's
But no,
just
you
a
want to be able
spinny
because the master at this has got like a vinyl on the left and the digital one on the right, and they're using
Right.
both.
Well, I mean, some people, what they'll do is they'll get you could do the thing where the Serato, where you have the record that turns a regular vinyl into the controller. But actually, what most people do now, if they're going to use a vinyl, is they'll have a DJ controller that's the fake turntables that are just basically a game controller that spins like a Beatmania, but fancy. And then they'll just put a regular turntable next to it, and now you have three. You have two that are digital, and then one that's actually has a needle on it. And that way, if you want to bring in a vinyl record, you can. And if you just want to spin the files that are on your USB stick, you do that also.
All right. Well, anyway, I think we're good to go. Got an opening bit, I guess. I don't think I actually talked about skiing. Did I? I don't think I talked about skiing. I only did one show.
Were you aware that there were 4 nations, and they're facing off as we speak? Well, 2 of them got faced off. 2 of them remain.
And we can start with that. Talk some hockey. All right. It's Tuesday, February 18th, 2024. Live. I'm Rem.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are revisiting the Milton Bradley game, Shogun, a.k.a. Samurai Swords, a.k.a. Ikusa, from the year 1986. So, as you were saying just before we started the show, there are 4 nations, and they are facing off right now.
Yeah, for the non-hockey people out there, the NHL hasn't had in a long time, has not allowed their players to go to the Olympics, or there hasn't been a World Cup of hockey since 2016, which was kind of a weird one anyway. So we haven't been able to see like the best on best, right? The best of each country playing against each other. And even now we really can't because Russia's out of it for obvious reasons.
Yep.
The U.S. could be out of it for similar reasons. Who knows?
The fact that they had to start announcing, like, please respect the national anthems because the Canadians are rightly booing the U.S. anthem.
Please boo our anthem. You are right to do so.
The only reason I don't sit down during the anthem at Rangers games is I'm afraid a drunk guy will attack me.
I don't take my hat off, though.
I also do not take my hat off. But even then, I'm always thinking.
In there and I don't have hair.
I'm always thinking, will a drunk guy attack me?
Good, then I'll text MSG security and get them. Anyway,
they show up in like 2 seconds.
They do show up very quickly. Okay, but the point is, so to replace the garbage All-Star game, because all All-Star games in all the major sports have become worthless. Just garbage, and everyone hates them. The NHL was like, all right, this year we'll do what we can do and have a 4 nations face-off, they call it, where it's just U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland, which are the top 4 out of 5, because Russia would be the only one who else could have a chance of winning anyway.
Who else could it be? Like Germany? It's not going to happen.
Czechoslovakia and Germany. It's like Czechoslovakia could win with like Czechia could win with like a miracle of some kind.
You realize we're old enough to where we're saying the wrong names of countries because things have changed.
Right. But it's like no other country has a chance.
The globe I had as a kid had Persia on it. And
everyone, all the hockey fans were like, okay, they were kind of lukewarm to even some of the hockey media people were like, this is fake, it's exhibition, it's, whatever, right? Who cares? No one cares who wins this thing. No one will remember. It's no big deal. And I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. No one cares who wins. It's not like you get an Olympic medal when you win or anything. But I was like, you know what? Why I could go for like a weekend in Montreal.
The only reason we didn't go is that we have our elderly, like 14-plus-year-old rabbit who we don't want to leave home alone for a long time because he's a great little guy. So we're not doing a lot of like big trips.
I just thought it would be, I was like, hey, it might be fun. I'll watch it. It's like, whatever, it's not going to hurt me.
What I wanted to do was go up there, watch some games in Montreal, and then go skiing at Tremblant.
Well, I was just going to hang out in Montreal and see Montreal shit. Regardless, that didn't happen. We played board games all weekend instead. But we watched four nations face off on pirated television, and the players tried. They actually tried real hard.
I would say these games look really fast. Like, they are trying hard. They are skating hard.
And it's like the fourth line of these teams, especially US and Canada. It's like the fourth line takes the ice, and it's like that's a first line. It's like you got four first lines. Normally, when you play hockey, it's like you can give players a break when by putting the fourth line out against the other, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, they got four first lines. It's like you have to be playing the whole time. Otherwise, there's always super dangerous people out there who will score.
And it felt like it. These games just keep going. There's like no lull except when there's a fight happening.
Yeah. So I guess it worked. I guess wearing their country's jerseys made these players play, even though it's a meaningless exhibition game in the middle of the season, and they could get, some of them have gotten hurt and could hurt their regular season chances by hurting themselves in these exhibition games.
Well, I think it says two things.
Whatever.
Lowercase n nationalism is rising in the world generally because we're in a really, weird interwar, messed up period right now for all the reasons you know. But also, I think it shows something that we always talk about, how hockey as a sport is a thing where a lot of the pros, their main goal is they just want to be paid to play hockey. Like, they love playing hockey.
I mean, yeah. If I could, I would also love playing hockey, except for the getting hurt part.
Yeah.
But if I was big and strong, I wouldn't be as worried about that as I am.
Yeah, if I got checked by the weakest person in the NHL, I'm at least breaking my shoulder. I'm at least broken.
At least. All of my shoulders.
I mean, it's not quite as bad as getting punched by Mike Tyson.
No, I mean,
that's just instant death for someone like me.
He has gotten a bit weaker, but yeah.
Oh, yes, but if he punched me today, I think I would die.
Probably.
Regardless, even if I was ready for it.
The NBA All-Star Game happened as usual, and the media has been destroying it. Like, they're like, oh, look at the NHL finally figured it out, and NBA, you still got this garbage.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
The finals are on Thursday at 8:00 New York time. If you want to see, if you're not a hockey fan, you don't give a shit about hockey, whatever, watch that. If you watch one hockey game in your whole life, on Thursday at 8:00 New York time, US and Canada, they are going to play as hard as they possibly can.
I mean, and if you don't believe us, just go look up what happened in the previous game of this series between the US and Canada in the first 1 minute and 30 seconds of that game.
Yeah, some players are hurt, but enough of them are going to play anyway because I guess they care a whole lot about this exhibition game.
So in some news, there's a ton of gaming news because we didn't do a bunch of shows between MagFest, all of us getting the flu A, then me going to ski for a week in Vail. But the Nintendo Switch 2, which appears to just be called the Switch 2, is
They should have called it the Super Switch. They should have called it the Super Switch.
They should have called it the Switch 2.
I'm calling it the Super Switch from now on.
How long is that going to last?
I was already calling it the Super Switch. But
I'm pretty sure
the listener knows what I'm talking about when I say Super Switch.
I am pretty sure there are old episodes of Geek Nights where we swore we would call it the Nintendo Revolution.
Well, that was the code name for the Wii.
But key points, like there's a weird like mouse thing on it. Otherwise, like there's an official like full-on launch thing coming soon, so you don't really have to worry about like
April 2nd is going to be a Nintendo Direct that gives all the details. But the biggest thing that we know already is that there's going to be the Joy-Con will come off. You turn it sideways and use it as a mouse, like a computer mouse. And on the one hand, it looks like it's going to be not very ergonomic, but so did the N64 controller and the GameCube controller. So, well, it remains to be seen if it actually is, because I could imagine it also being ergonomic, right? Like, it could work, right?
I mean, to this day, the GameCube controller is like, I think, one of the best controllers ever made.
Right. I think the issue with it is even if it's ergonomic, who's got like a little flat surface near their TV to use it? Right?
If I were the product manager, I'm going to put on my professional hat. One of the most important requirements would be it has to work if you're a kid just sitting on the floor, bunch of different floor types, and it has to work if you're trying to
work on a carpet. It ain't gonna work on a carpet.
I would say either make it work on a fucking carpet or don't do it at all. It's got to work on a carpet.
I think they're gonna sell all kinds of Nintendo official mouse pads that you would like put on your carpet. And then...
I would make it work on any carpet but shag and any couch but fancy, or not at all.
I don't think it's gonna work on carpet. Anyway, the point is, it's just gonna be an optical mouse. It'll work where an optical mouse works.
They work a lot better than they used to. Also, fun fact:
they don't work on carpet.
Old ball mice were also optical.
Sure. No.
Yeah, they were. Do you know how they actually worked inside? There was a little light, and when you rolled it, there were two rollers that had little flaps on them that had different sides, and they'd flap around in a circle, and it would count the flaps with light.
All right. Regardless, this I think is actually the biggest deal for the Switch, because regardless of how powerful it is or what other features it has or any other nonsense, right? This is like, hey, you can play FPS games on the Switch now.
Yep.
For real. You can get strategy games like Civ or any on RTS or a Balatro or any of the kind of games where there's a whole bunch of games that are on Switch 1 already, where when you take them out and you use the touchscreen, right? Like say Slay the Spire, right? But you put that shit in the dock and you're going to play that with a controller and it sucks. And so having that mouse there activates all those games as now playable on the TV, and the PlayStation and the Xbox, like, you can't plug, as far as I know, you can't plug a mouse into a PS. I don't know why they don't. It would be so easy. It's just USB. What's the problem, right? Bluetooth mouse. Why don't they let you just use a Bluetooth mouse with a PS5 to play an FPS like Call of Duty? I don't know. But I guess they're going to have to, or the Switch is going to eat their lunch.
The reason I think they have done that is solely that they want people who do not want to use a mouse to still be able to play with the controller, but they've learned, as every game has learned, including like even Overwatch has done the most data on this, you cannot ever let mouse and controller people play in the same FPS or one of those populations.
Xbox, they learned that at the launch of the Xbox 360 with that Shadowrun FPS. That was when the lesson was proven. But I think the thing is, for other game types, like say fighting games, it's like there's a lot of different controllers, joysticks, leverless, and gamepads are all viable at high levels for fighting game competition, but not for FPS.
I'd argue further,
even if you forget the FPSs, like all the other genres of games that are optimal for touchscreen,
like Mario Paint.
Mario Paint can get into the Super Nintendo Switch Online.
We had that mouse,
right? And so that's going to be huge. And I think it also, in a world where PCs are getting weird, expensive, tariffed, NVIDIA has GPUs setting on fire. This really enables, I think, the normal person to get through life, a normal person who plays a lot of video games, to get through life with, say, a MacBook Air and a Switch, and that you don't need anything, or an iPad and a Switch, and you don't need anything else.
Yep, it's also a relatively low-risk feature, because if it doesn't get adopted for anything other than like Nintendo interface stuff and a couple
there's
of
a lot of
games,
like the Switch 1 has infrared in the controller, and it's only used for like a couple things, right? Like Ring Fit or Labo, and they're like, that those won't work. Those are like the only games I think that aren't going to work on the Switch 2 that you need a Switch 1 for, are those kinds that need that infrared sensor.
Now, one thing, a little side bit, is that there's a bunch of people in the media and on social media complaining that there's an indication that Nintendo first-party games and just launch games might edge up to $70 each. So
right, well, there was an announcement today, because Nintendo has a voucher program. If you have a Switch Online subscription, which is so cheap that if you have a Switch, you should have it.
Yep.
Especially if you get friends and family into it, then it's really cheap. It's like it's a yearly small token fee. You get a whole bunch of stuff, but one of the things you get is the ability to buy vouchers. And the way the vouchers work is it costs $100 and you get 2 vouchers. And a voucher can be used to just get a video game. And so as long as you use the voucher on a $60 video game, a Nintendo first-party title, you make $20. And so if you plan to buy 2 first-party Nintendo titles, there is no reason not to buy 2 vouchers and cash them in. And now guess what? Switch Online was now basically free for the year, because that's right? And so if you use 4 vouchers, now you're making money.
Now in pricing, that is couponing, like that is a term, and basically what it's supposed to be used for is only either to get people to give you money in advance that they wouldn't otherwise give you, or
I think that's
or more usually to get people to buy a game they wouldn't have bought at a previous price point, but because of the voucher, they might buy it. So you get some money out of someone you wouldn't have otherwise gotten it out of.
I think it's to get people to give you $100 and hopefully they forget to use the voucher.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's also
and that money they make from that covers the people who did use it.
But the danger is if there are smart people, like, say, all of our friends who just use the vouchers tactically, then
you only save $10. It's fine. It's not. They're not going bankrupt on the vouchers.
But
the point
still,
is,
it reduces the value of doing such a thing.
Right. The point is they're canceling. They're not letting people use the vouchers going forward. And it's like on Switch 2. And it's like, yeah, obviously, because Switch 2 games are going to be $70+ and that's too much savings.
But I want to point out, because I have a memory of paying either $65 or $70 for Mario 3 and Zelda 2, but we found a receipt from 1990 that is Mario 3 for like $50, and I just want to point out to all you kids.
I remember every NES game costing $50 when I was a kid.
So $50 in 1990 is the equivalent of $120 today. So until your like Zelda whatever version comes out next is $120 or more, you can stop complaining about a $70 40-hour first-party experience.
Yeah. 70's fine, right? Metroid Prime 4, $70? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a gold coin system that's on Nintendo Switch that I never really understood.
I always kind of ignored it, and then I'd have some coins and I'd use them on cheap games.
Yeah, but basically you buy Nintendo games, you get gold coins, and then the next time you buy Nintendo games, you cash in your gold coins for a discount. So you get basically, it's sort of like a more games you buy will give you some money back kind of program.
Yep.
But they're basically saying, yeah, you can't. We're gonna stop giving out more gold coins soon, and you better redeem them by some point when they expire. Otherwise, because we're not gonna let you transfer them over to our new Switch 2 deal.
Now changing both of these at the same time is interesting because I'll say this is an opinion, but it is my professional opinion, not for games, but just in general. I do not like couponing style pricing because broadly it's used either to trick people into giving you loans, or it's used to trick people who wouldn't otherwise buy something into buying something by having them have to spend their time or effort instead of their money. Because if you make it too easy and too comprehensible, everyone would do it. So anyone who does a couponing strategy is looking for the line of, can I rip off just enough people to get more money out of the market without everybody taking advantage of this coupon? And I personally think that kind of practice should be banned. I think coupons are not good for society broadly, but that's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, the way I always saw coupons, the grocery store ones, like Grandma used to cut out, was like, Grandma just went to the grocery store and she saw 5 different boxes of raisins. She might have bought the store brand, right? Because that's the cheapest one, and raisins are raisin, right? What's the big difference? But if there was a Sun-Maid raisin coupon, right? I love the Sun-Maid, by the way, but regardless, she got a Sun-Maid raisin coupon from in the circular in the newspaper, and she goes to the grocery store, and she's got that coupon in there, and she take the Sun-Maid raisin, and so that's what it was.
Yep, but it's more used to get people to spend more over time and just make it hard for anyone who would just get a discount to actually use it without a lot of effort. See, because I have this gate on it.
I mean, how about those mail-in rebates too?
Oh, mail-in rebates! Thing is, I remember when Egghead made it real easy to do the mail-in rebates. They would just handle it for you, and Newegg still does, I think.
I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. I don't buy computers that often. Anyway, in some other news, Civilization 7 came out. We are on that train. We're going to save conversation for an episode where we review it, but we got to play it more. I have some reactions.
It a bit, but I got to play it way more bits.
I would say that the problem I have with this game, it seems to be the same problem that everyone has. The user experience, like the UX design and the UA design, is not good. And it really just, I feel like it would be easy to make this good, and I don't know how they fucked it up so profoundly to where me, someone who has played every single version of Civilization pretty deeply and is like, I would consider myself a near expert in like playing Civ games. Yeah. Like, I'm not a professional. I'm not like one of the people in the community.
Every Civ game ever, especially the recent ones, 4, 5, 6, right? It's like there have been UI problems, but you could play them with the default UI. But when you used some kind of mod to change the UI, it's like, usually I'm like, that's only for the turbo nerds. But I've installed a few of those, and actually they did make the game quite a bit better and nicer to play, some of them that I've tried.
A friend of ours pointed out
Civ 7, that it's basically that problem that's always been there, that just wasn't a problem that was big enough to be devastating, is now devastating.
I think part of it is games, like Civ games, typically every version did have a pretty new UI, but you had this sort of grounding of Civ to where like you'd kind of get it pretty quick. Like when I launched Civ 5 the first time, it was a radically new UI, but also it was well enough designed and had a good enough information hierarchy. I knew what I was doing. And Civ 6, similarly, good enough information hierarchy. It had some rough edges, but it worked. I fucking don't know where to look in these UIs for Civ 7. Like, I look like there's nothing that highlights what the important part of any given screen is, to the point that I am like lost in a way that I've never felt in any Civ game ever. I felt less lost when I played Hearts of Iron the first time.
I mean, it's clear to me that they put in more effort into things like, the art and the history, and it's good to put effort into those things, right? But they did not put, and they, there changes to the game, but it's like, if you look at for example, the trading, right? It's like, trading system is basically the same as it's always been in other previous Civs. You make a merchant and you send them to a city, and then they make a trade route, right? But it's like the UI for that, it's like it brings up a list of trade routes, and you just can't click on those. You actually have to send the merchant to the city you want to go to, like on the map, and then when they get there, then you have to push like the trade route.
But then
button.
Like the same UI comes up, so it's like confusing.
It does, yeah, and it's like it's clear to me that they didn't play the game, right? It's like, who played
I think it's worse than that. They played the game a lot. A friend of ours said this. I agree.
It could be that situation. It could be partially that.
It reeks of, paraphrasing a friend of ours who's in the game industry, they had people who were very good at Civ play this game exhaustively during playtesting, and they didn't have anyone else playtest it during playtesting.
Yeah, could be.
But we'll do a review at some point. In some other news, this is not shocking. This is 100% expected, but it's worth calling out because this is a perennial problem in the games industry. Marvel Rivals, super successful as far as anyone can tell. The only other
moderately
game
successful.
It's basically the only other game that matters in the Overwatch genre. You got Marvel Rivals, and you got Overwatch
in the United States.
Yeah, and Marvel Rivals, of course, has laid off a good chunk of the team, and I think they even laid off like the director. Big layoffs.
Yep.
I'll link to some articles about it because they don't need those people anymore.
Nope, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Is we talk about how, hey, games have these sort of live service model of microtransactions and seasons and stuff to constantly take money from people. And the reason that you have that is that you can keep employees around, and you don't have to keep making new games and keep rolling the dice the old model, right? But the thing is, when you make a video game, to maintain it and carry it on and develop new skins for loot boxes and new modes and things like that, you only need some of the employees. You don't need the level designer anymore. You don't need the director anymore. You don't need like the engine programmers, maybe not all of them anymore.
Depending how cynical your game is, you don't need anything but the loot box people.
Right. It's like depends on what you plan to be doing with your game in the future and who you still have left. So it's like, even if you did have, so many people, like, okay, we had 10 level designers to make like the initial levels. How often are we adding a new level? Once a year, maybe, right? It's like, we only need some of those people to stay on permanently to fix patches and levels and whatnot. We don't need the big team that can churn out 5 levels in 2 years. So yeah, they laid off all the people they don't need to carry the game going forward.
Yep. And this is partly why, Hollywood's not the best model, but it took Hollywood and like film production a long time to figure out a system that kind of pays everyone in the way that movies get made. Because think about how a movie gets made.
Yeah, everyone's got unions. That's how.
Yep. But a movie gets made, huge army of people get together, make a big movie, and then they all have to go away. And then another movie gets made with a different big army of people. So you needed a way to make sure there is a critical mass of people who can do those jobs, who have enough money to live all year round. Unions force that. Video games don't have unions. And
it also sure helps that Hollywood still cranks out just a bunch of worthless movies all the time.
Oh, you think the worthless games don't get cranked out like clockwork?
I'm just saying, but the worthless movies still have enough budget in them from,
That is true. Worthless games tend to either just be loot boxes.
A shovelware costs like 5 digits to make, right? If that.
Yep. But one other little news. So Final Fantasy is now entering the Magic the Gathering world. And
Magic the Gathering. I mean, is there anything they're not going to, any licensed property that's not going to make it onto a Magic card?
I imagine they will never make a World War II themed Magic set.
Maybe, but I guess that's not an intellectual property you have to pay for. But yeah, it's like at this point,
Ichi the Killer is never going to get a Magic the Gathering dedicated set.
Everyone else has tried to make a card game to compete with Magic based on some intellectual property, and all those games inevitably failed. The Gundam one's coming soon, and I don't know, that one's going to probably not be any good. Yep. So at this point, it's just everyone else is like, screw it. Well, if we're not Pokemon, right, and we're not Yu-Gi-Oh, we'll why should we bother making our own card game? Let's just make a Magic set that's Magic and also our game.
I mean, Magic the Gathering is the Counter-Strike of card games. It's the lifestyle game. I think part of why this happened is
I'd say it's now the Fortnite of card games.
I'd say so. But it's partly just that Magic had, like, the first one was pretty fully realized in terms of how to make a card game like this, just like Dominion was a fully realized deck builder despite being the first one. We see this pattern time and time again. And now that I went back and revisited Kalis, like the first worker placement game, yeah, it's basically got everything that every worker placement game since has done. There's almost nothing new after that. If you're the first one to be in a genre, you're very likely going to succeed or get destroyed by the second one that comes in. And there was never a second one against Magic. But I think it also says something else. There have definitely been games that came out that had far superior or more interesting or radically different mechanics, but I don't think the mechanics are what sell most people on games like this. It's the community.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people who play Magic who would prefer to play a different game, or, are not forgetting the people who want to make money, right?
Yeah.
But the other, of just the people who care about playing the game, a lot of those people are, recognize the issues that the game has and would rather play a different game. Mm-hmm. But if they go to their local game store, it's like the cards aren't there. The store doesn't run a tournament. There aren't judges. There isn't this whole system. So it's
even just the peer pressure. All your friends, if all your friends were playing World of Warcraft, your option was play World of Warcraft with them or don't play games with them. And I think Magic is the same way.
Have Magic cards. It's like, this. So if you want, it's like, in some ways, it's like, playing Magic is just what's going to happen.
Same reason Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people would rather play another system, but
some of them.
Yeah. Well, but all of us, I mean, I haven't played D&D except in Baldur's Gate in a long time. But anyway, things of the day. This could be news, but I'm making it a thing of the day because there is a nice 30-minute video that goes through the full details of what went down. So 2 weeks ago, this video was uploaded because after 44 years, someone has gotten past the kill screen of Donkey Kong and played a bunch more levels, thus effectively setting the completely brand new world record. Billy Mitchell and everyone else are trash now compared to this.
Well, Billy Mitchell was always trash.
Billy Mitchell was always trash.
I mean, he was still really good at Donkey Kong.
He was, but he cheated in the same way that Gurgi cheated in the early chapters of Player of Games. He wanted to get the full web, and he didn't want to wait for it.
Exactly. But yeah, this video, I'm not going to bother wasting time on the show, but the way the Donkey Kong kill screen works mathematically, computationally with the integer overflow is a bit different than the way it works in some other games like Pac-Man, where it's like you're just done. So it's basically like, yeah, you can't, it messes up the time limit in a certain level. And it's like, if you can't, so now it's like you have to beat that level in like an absurdly fast
like Mario
amount of
makes
time.
it up one rafter, halfway up the next one, times out. Like, what the fuck are you going to do?
Right. It's not like Pac-Man where the game is just like, GG. So if you could beat that level fast enough, you could actually get to the next level. It's just the timer's messed up. And if you could actually beat all the 4 levels, you could actually, if you could somehow make it to the next like stage, then like the timer wouldn't be fucked up anymore because it would wrap around and you could play like a double length game. But that hasn't happened yet.
So this video is great because basically the way this was accomplished is Cosmic, like modern speedrunner, applied modern speedrunning techniques and glitch manipulation to Donkey Kong. And basically the summary of the story, if you watch this whole video, is...
Also, it's a Taz. It's not a person.
Yeah, but a person could theoretically do it.
No, a person cannot do it.
Not at all?
No. It's too... Your fingers would have to be like, you'd have to be like the Flash or something.
Yeah. Because I watched a video of someone
You have
doing...
to do like frame perfect inputs, like
so
5
people,
times
I guess I'll put it this way.
Like
People can do the trick that is used in isolated circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it like a couple times. But
imagine trying to do the maximum snaking in Mario Kart DS and do it for 4 hours straight. Like,
no, this is a bit different than that, but yeah.
Yeah, but the trick itself has to do with flipping up and down within a repeating 5-frame cycle.
Yeah. 5 frame perfect inputs like in fractions of a second. It's not happening.
But it does mean this is not a kill screen in the traditional sense. So anyway, what do you got?
So there's this dude, and it was interesting because, every terrible thing in the world, right? Even some of the terrible things that are happening now, they have sometimes, often actually, a silver lining. Now, that does not justify them. They are still terrible, and it would be much better to sacrifice the silver lining to get rid of the terribleness, right? But it's like, hey, my whole house burned down, but I get to have the fun of decorating a new house. It's like, no, it would be better if your house didn't burn down, right? It's like, come on. So this guy in this video is sponsored by Temu, which is terrible, right?
Yep.
Do not buy anything from Temu. Right? Dude, it's like, it's a terrible place. It shouldn't exist. We shouldn't, it should be outlawed in a just society. But silver lining of Temu is, thanks to Temu, this person was able to purchase functioning yet incredibly low quality musical instruments at a reasonable price, a too reasonable price. And you know what? Musical instruments are very expensive. And if someone wants to learn a musical instrument, say a trumpet, as in this video, or who knows what, and they can't afford one because, they are not fortunate in life, access to like a $5 trumpet that functions and sounds terrible, it's a silver lining, I would say, right?
Well, it's probably
like, otherwise, if you go to a music
I'd say it's
store,
probably more of a lead lining because silver trumpets are expensive, and it is Temu.
That is a concern. That is a concern I had with the guy blowing on the Temu mouthpiece. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you went to a normal music store, even like a Guitar Center, and was like, give me your cheapest trumpet, like, it's going to be way more expensive than a Temu.
About $80 to $100 for like the cheapest refurbished trumpet.
Right. So this guy took 2 piece of shit Temu trumpets and he basically used some PVC pipe and some 3D printed flute heads, because I guess flute is his thing. And he concocted this crazy musical instrument where you take 2 trumpets together and use them not as a trumpet, but as an air router, because the valves just route air through different pipes.
Yep.
That's all they do.
Yep.
Right? And so by cutting these trumpets up, and since they're cheap, why not cut them up? Who gives a crap? They're not like they're fancy or anything, right? And then connecting a whole bunch of flutes to the front, he can use the valve, blow into a single hole with his mouth, right? With a potentially lead-laden mouthpiece. You should hope he got a different one than the T one. And use the valves to control which flutes the air goes into as sort of a flute Gatling gun and play music that would, I guess, at least in terms of, playing it live would otherwise be kind of impossible, at least for a single person. And like you can hear like the sounds and music that I guess could not be heard elsewhere. And the thing about this video that brings it to like extreme thing of the day territory is like, once you think he's taken this idea as far as it can go, he keeps going. And he finds like another crazy way to expand and, the possibilities of this concoction.
In the meta moment, actually, I didn't get the links together for the book club, so I'll announce that next time.
Fail. Okay.
I mean, I was off and busy, and we had the holiday. Anyway, I just forgot because I was busy the last few days.
PAX East is coming.
PAX East is coming. We expect to be there. ZenkaiCon is coming up. I will be there doing like 5 talks. That'll be a fun time. Otherwise,
it's cold.
Yep. Maybe I'll go ski this coming weekend. Lots going on in our lives. Lots going on in the world. But I did, in the last show, I did say I want to give a piece of practical advice at the end of every show for what you can do to fight the whole fascism situation in America. Even if it's small, there's always something you can do. So I will have one at the end of the show, but it's a pretty good one because we might already be winning this one. New York City's piece of shit mayor has like 3 different swords of Damocles hanging over him simultaneously, and if any one of them falls, he's out.
Please.
Oh my God, just one victory. One victory would feel so good right now for everybody. So, at the end, the stinger at the end of the show, I will explain that situation in some detail and tell you what you can do to help get this piece of shit out of the mayor's office so we can get someone cool in there. All right, let's get right into it. So, way back on January 24th, 2006, Scott and I did a show where we discussed the entire Milton Bradley Gamemaster series, which, this is now Hasbro, the company. It consists of Shogun, which is the game we're talking about, Axis and Allies, Fortress America, and a Conquest of the Empire, and a game I literally forgot existed, but must have known existed in the year 2006 until Scott reminded me we did the show, Boarding Parties.
Yep. So just, I don't want to belabor the point here because we did talk about it in 2006. I don't know what we said then, but this was a series of games that you could buy at Toys R Us, but were significantly more nerdy and more advanced than Risk or Scrabble or Monopoly. And so when us nerds, there wasn't anywhere else to get board games in the 90s or 80s or whatever. So when nerds saw those at the store of our age, we were like, oh shit, that's like the coolest board game here. I want that. And so that's the games that we were playing. And if we weren't playing, I don't know what else you had in those days, a D&D or a Battletech or a Warhammer. Those were pretty much your option. And those 3 games were only available if you had a nerdy game store in your neighborhood, right?
I had the book to battle system. I never found anyone who would play it with me.
Right. And so, or I guess Hero Quest was even lesser than Games Master series, right?
So these games were sort of portrayed as the more serious games, and they were largely just like an order of magnitude or 2 more complex and compelling, and we're not saying they were good, but there was more going on. So,
all right, and the one that we played the most, that we enjoyed the most, was Shogun / Samurai Sword / Ikusa, which we're just going to call Shogun. Because even though there's other games called Shogun, you know which one we're talking about. It's the Milton Bradley Gamemaster Shogun.
Yep, with the Ashigaru and the Samurai and the Koku. And I had memories. I haven't played this game in a long time. But I remembered liking many aspects of it, but I also remember having some grievances about some aspects of it. But it stuck around in my head as a game that felt like it was more good than bad. So this past weekend, we got a bunch of pros together at the table. Like, our pro types. Like, whenever we do those panels and we're like, if you play with pros, that game takes 20 minutes. Like, it was those people.
This game doesn't take 20 minutes, but...
This game did take more than 2 hours, though.
Yeah. So we set a 2-hour timer, but we did spend time learning and setting up, refreshing, not learning, but we had to teach some people, we had to set it up. So other people say it'll take 5 hours. I think we could have done it in 3 hours.
I think our game had one more round and at most a vestigial second round where someone got mopped up. I think the game was about to end.
Yes, but regardless, we can play it faster than the 5 hours that it takes other people, but it's still a long game. It will take you at least 2 hours to play this game. We played it a lot in the college days, at least a lot for this kind of game. How many times, how many times can you play this kind of thing that takes so long and comes in a huge box?
Yep.
But we played, considering that, we played it quite a bit. And I only had positive memories mostly of playing it, even when I lost. And so since it had been so long, the pros came and I said, we're going to play this again. Now with our pro brains, it's been so long. We learned so much about games since the last time we played it. Let's look at it again, see what there is to see. And boy, did we see what there is to see.
Yep, we're going to deep dive a little bit on mechanics because we did not have a lexicon back then like we have now. It's been a long time of studying games. Right. I'd say the experience was mostly positive. Like, I still really enjoyed it. If we had said, let's continue this game to its conclusion for another hour, I would have been all on board. And
I would have been okay.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I would have tolerated it because one, I was winning. That helps.
That helps.
But two, I think the thing that really stands out is that there are parts of this game that are actually, even by modern standards, extremely good. And there are more than one of them. And they're kind of all just held back by a small number of mechanics that have this like compounding, time-wasting busy work effect that make the game take forever when it doesn't need to.
Yep. So here's a quick summary of how this game works. It's Risk, effectively. You have units on a map of ancient Japan, feudal Japan, and you're fighting, and you're trying to take over enough territory to win the game.
Yep.
All right. Or if no one ever takes up enough territory to win the game, as soon as a single player is eliminated, you check to see who has the most, and that person wins. And of course, if you are the person who deals the finishing blow to someone, you get all their territory. So usually the first person to deal a finishing blow wins. And so this is much better than Risk, where you don't have to wait for like someone to conquer the whole freaking board or whatever, or Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
It has this ending that keeps it from going longer than 5 hours, right? But it is ultimately dudes on a map fighting. Now, what happens in this game that makes it different from the other dudes on a map fighting games is that everything other than the fighting is basically awesome kind of Eurogamey stuff, right? You have a budget of money. And at the start of the turn, you budget your money into 5 areas, right? You can bid. You can use it to try to get good turn order, which matters a lot. You can use it to build castles for defense. You can use it to just get more units, right? To make your army stronger.
Yep.
You can use it to hire a ninja who can assassinate an enemy. And you can use it to hire Ronin to basically get more dangerous units for your money, but they're temporary units just for that turn, but they're surprise units that no one knows where they're hiding. So the castles are really fun. The bidding for swords, turn order is really fun.
It's a brilliant mechanic because the thing I want to zoom in on very specifically, because you talked about that. Bidding for turn order in games is often frustrating, but in this game, if nobody bids, it's just random because no one gave a shit. No one cared. If only a couple players bid, they just say what position they want to go, and if there's no conflict, they get what they want, and everyone else is random. But you don't necessarily want to go first, but you also don't necessarily want to go last. So basically, you're bidding on, I care when I go, and there are sometimes good reasons to want to go first or last.
Yeah, a lot of other games, it's like it's like in Agricola, you can go to that spot to take the first player marker.
Yep.
There's nowhere to go in Agricola to go last on purpose.
Yep. And there's usually no reason to go last on purpose. This Shogun is just unique in that going first and going last is like us, or even going third. I could see myself bidding and wanting to go third, depending on how the game is going.
It would have to be a weird situation, but usually you want to go first.
Probably an
end
game situation.
Yeah, you would go first. Like if someone was in a weak position and you wanted to attack them and kill them right away and win the game, you'd want to go last if you want to see what everyone else is up to and then make your decisions.
Or you want to go last or second to last if you want to spend your turn consolidating territory that no one can just quickly take back from you to get a bunch of money one time.
Right. You get money based on how much territory you have at the start of your turn. So if you go last, you're basically going to be able to have more territory. If you go first, it's like you take territory, and then 4 people, all your opponents go, and some of them might take some of that territory back, and now it's your turn, and you have less money. If you go last, you'll have more money.
But also the way they did it was great. They printed these 5 plastic swords, and someone holds them out like their hand's the sheath, and all the random people draw the swords, and the game has a little holder that you put it on, though every picture shows people putting the sword on the holder the wrong way, but whatever. Though, I will say, the concept of the sword in the holder is cool. Having looked at this game again, the sword holders look like absolute dog shit.
Well, that's just because the set that we have is the samurai sword.
There's no way to make them not look bad because they're like torn off plastic or they're torn off styrofoam.
Yeah, it's terrible. But I think if you get the Ikusa, I think the construction is a little
I think they have a completely different...
components.
Someone said there aren't the swords in Ikusa. They did something else.
No, whatever. Yeah, the building of castles is really fun because the way the castles work is you put a castle in a territory you have. If anyone attacks, 4 spearmen just jump out of the castle. If they attack again, 4 spearmen jump out of the castle. Yeah. It's like an enemy generator in Gauntlet, right? And then if you lose that territory, there's still a castle there. The castle can never be destroyed. So if you try to take your territory back, the castle spits out 4 spearmen of the enemy, right? Whoever owns it has the enemy generator. And if you upgrade it, it spits out like 5 swordmen instead. It's insane. So that's just a whole lot of fun.
Yep.
Levying units, that's not as exciting. It's like you pay money, you get units, but you can only put 1 unit per territory, which is really limiting. It's not like in Risk where you can just pile a bunch of dudes into one place and then go, rah!
Yep.
Right?
But that leads to, it complements another mechanic where this game has like regular armies that are just units directly on the board. Like up to 5 units of any type are just sitting on a space. And they're their own army. And they can attack and they can do anything, just like in Risk. But then you got 3 banners that represent big armies of like 5 or 6 or 7 dudes who are sitting in
up to 15 dudes.
Yep, on a little board in front of you. So you're moving around this giant blob of units, and that army can have a big old battle. And constituting that army, you can't just buy all the units you want to put in the army. It basically has this like sub game where you're buying units. Most of them go out onto the board, and then you have to move your army around to sort of like sweep them up into the army, which is actually pretty variously realistic to how armies functioned in that era, and it actually makes for an interesting mechanic.
It's also, like, hey, if your daimyo, your general, is standing in this one province of Japan, it's like, where is he gonna find? Let's say you have enough koku to get like 5 archers. Mm-hmm. Where are there gonna be 5 samurai archers?
You think you're gonna go to Ohio and recruit 5
it's like that doesn't,
and
those archers don't represent a single archer. They represent like a squadron of archers, right? So it's like, are there just 5 squadrons of archers in this territory, like trained, and you have the equipment for them and the arrows, and the it's like that doesn't exist. So it's like at most the population of any one province can only produce enough resources to arm and train and make babies to have.
But this does something else mechanically.
1 troop of dudes per turn.
It forces the armies to have reasons to move around, because the armies will go around conquering territory to get money. They'll try to position themselves and posture and eventually try to gang up on and jump one of the other banners. But also, they gotta risk themselves and move around and keep armies. If you build a castle and every guy just sit in the castle, he's gonna sit in that castle doing nothing, and you gotta send him out of his castle to collect units and send him back into the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes for a more dynamic game.
Yep. Okay, so then you got the
Ronin.
ninja. Well, the Ronin. The Ronin is a super fun. The way the Ronin work is you hire these temporary mercenary dudes that are only there for 1 turn, but they're really strong. You get 2 swordsmen for what? It's a really good deal. You have in your hand. You have cards. There's 1 card for every province on the map, and so you hold in your hand a card for every province you own that's in your territory. Mm-hmm. And you take a card of a territory and put it face down and put some Ronin on it, and now everyone knows. In one of Scott's territories, there's 4 Ronin, 2 Ronin, 6 Ronin, however many, and you have to have more of your own real troops in that territory than there are Ronin. Otherwise, you have to keep the Ronin under control, right?
Yeah.
You can't just have 20 Ronin and one of your spearmen is bossing them around. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
So by looking at the number, people can sort of figure out, okay, that those Ronin could only be in one of these territories, but they don't know which one. And then during that turn, and that turn only, they can either become a surprise attack or a surprise defense. Like, haha, Ronin jumping out of here. Woo! And
it's so fun.
Make people nervous to attack you.
And I got to say, because when we were playing this game at RIT, so in the early 2000s, we were young, we were naive, and I think we were largely playing, without saying it out loud, the 20 minutes no rush style of gameplay. When we played with the pros, like a daimyo went down real fucking quick, and there were Ronin everywhere in the second round.
Yep. And so the final mechanic is the ninja. You hire the ninja. If you successfully hire them, you have a random chance you can use it to assassinate somebody's daimyo, right?
And it prevents the army from moving, like the army's weaker, and like maybe it's a good chance to take them out. But if you fail, like if the die roll fails, whoever you tried to assassinate gets a harder die roll to then turn it around and assassinate one of your daimyos. So it's risky.
And if you don't even attempt the assassination, but you hired the ninja, you can use the ninja to spy on someone's budget next turn, and then change your budget accordingly. So you never waste your money if you get the ninja. You always get something.
And the phase of allocate your resources and then simultaneously reveal was real fun and is like a strong part of this game. I'd love to see more games that have those simultaneous decision-making allocation type exercises.
So all those parts of this game are like great. They super improve on everything that's wrong with risk type games in a lot of ways and have lots of interesting, fun things to do. Surprising people with Ronin, hiring ninjas, abstracting your big army just by having 3 generals represent the big armies, all kinds of stuff. The bad part is that when dudes fight, you end up doing what you do in a risk type game, which is you roll a bunch of D12s. Thankfully, they're D12s, which are more fun than D6s.
For sure,
and
objectively so.
And they don't get used that often, but you just do a lot of dice rolling and slowly whittle away the enemy's units or call it off or whatever. And it's really time consuming to do, even if you get some app to help you or something. It only speeds it up so much. And the real bad part of it isn't so much the mechanics of it. It's that you're taking turns. So one person is doing a whole bunch of battling and everyone else is taking a nap.
Yep.
And if you have 5 players, 4 people taking a nap while one person does a whole bunch of time-consuming battles, then the next person, and then the next person.
Now, this is
literally
the part that
nothing for
me.
you to do. And it's like, even if someone attacks you, it's like you're just rolling dice and like choosing which guys to die. You're not really doing very much.
Now, what I
it's your
thought
turn.
Before we played this again was that the combat was like the thing that takes the most time. If we were going to like try to remaster or refurbish this game, that's what we'd streamline. But what I see playing it is that when 2 armies are fighting, like army versus army, it's kind of fun and okay that goes on for a little while.
If you're one of the 2 people fighting and not the 3 people taking a nap.
I found even if I wasn't one of the people fighting, it is a climactic battle that has serious implications. Like it was, it was fun to watch. The problem was that didn't actually take that much time. The time that was taken up was, remember what I said before? The armies can do battles, but every single territory can do battles on their own. So the first round, I think I started like 9 battles because I had all these little like, these 2 guys attack this space and these 3 guys attack this space and this one guy attacks this space because fuck it. And all those individual little battles, they take a while, but they're not that impactful or interesting compared to the armies clashing. But they also take extra time because there's so many, and because you can have different kinds of units on the board, every battle's a little unique. Like, oh, fuck, this one I got to roll 2d8 because I got 2 spearmen, but then I got to roll another d8 that's different because I got a swordsman happens to be sitting in that space. And this just multiplies the time it takes, so the least consequential battles end up taking the most time.
Yeah, I think you need to make, everything about this game is so great. If you could just take the combat and there needs to be some sort of simultaneity because everything else is simultaneous. Revealing your thing is simultaneous. placing your Ronin on cards is simultaneous, right? It's like you need to make all the combat for every player resolve all at once, right? In all together, so nobody has to take a nap. And you're correct. You have to remove. There's no reason to have all the time-consuming, complicated dice rolling for these inconsequential small battles. That will cut off a bunch of time as well. And then you need to make the big army battles are awesome and kind of work and are fun when you're involved. But so especially if you go a second round or a third round of volleys, the time adds up, and that's why the game takes 3 hours. If that phase of the game only took, say, twice as long or even 3 times as long as the other phases of the game, you could spring the whole thing out in like an hour.
Though another thing that complicates it is the fact that there are all these different unit types. Just that alone makes a lot of physically picking up the right units and moving them around in the right way and putting them in the right places. And then if you nudge the board ever so slightly and they fall over, it's sometimes hard to figure out where they were.
Yep.
The other thing that stood out that was negative, but we remembered this from our IT, is it does kind of have a last hitting problem in that the game, it's good that the game has a condition that ends the game. It's not the Monopoly risk slog. But because it's a political game, once someone loses a daimyo, like the game is just who finishes off that player's last daimyo. Like the game immediately becomes a last hitting game.
If someone has only 2 daimyos, it's like unless they really, I guess you could have a strategy where you really invest a lot in 2 daimyos and let a third one be weak and die on purpose.
I won with that at RIT quite a bit. I do a thing where I'd fill one army with nothing but archers and gunmen.
Right, but if someone loses a daimyo that had a strong army in it, right, they're really, now they are very far behind. And also, whoever attacked them and took that daimyo out probably also suffered a lot of casualties trying to do so. And now one of the other players can step in and there's, look at these very weak daimyos I can clean up on, right? And so it's like, you really don't want to be the first mover, but if you're not the first mover, where are you going to get territory to get more money? Yeah. And there's a little bit of something going on there.
And this is the other part that's fun. If you ignore the combat taking forever, the progress of the game has phases that are sort of natural and emergent, because the way the board gets set up is you get dealt a hand of these cards for the provinces, and your guys start in a bunch of random places. Everyone's just placed randomly, so it's all kind of mixed up. So you look at the board and you're like, I have a concentration of guys in that area of the map, and then I have like a smaller concentration in this other area. I'm going to focus on those 2 areas and just like let people eat the rest of my empire. Like I'm going to consolidate. And
they're letting you eat some of their empire, and then you sort of naturally have, what ends up being your territory.
So you get this like consolidation phase, and then the next phase of the game is basically the armies are moving around the map, like attacking regular territories. They're generally not attacking each other, and everyone's fighting over who has more territories. How much territory can I hold? But simultaneously,
sort of like the part of an Advance Wars where you're just trying to capture cities to increase your income. You're just trying to capture territories that are you've consolidated your empire to make all your territories strong and defensible, and then you just try to push outwards to increase the number of territories you have to get a bigger hand of cards, to get more koku, to get more dudes, to do more, to be better at the rest of the game, and so forth.
But what it's then the second phase starts to move into also the armies, the 3 banners. They're moving around the map, but you're like jockeying for position and posturing and picking up troops from all your provinces to make your better army. And the game's calculus comes down to, do I suddenly jump the other player with my armies as they are? Or do I hope someone else jumps someone who isn't me and I build up my army? And you're like, maybe you move one of your guys off into the sea to like protect him, or you hide in a fortress. And there's a lot of posturing until suddenly someone strikes. And the game does let you set things up like, oh shit, all 3 of my armies happen to be kind of surrounding this one. Here we go. I attack your one army 3 times and just wipe it out.
Yeah, and you might think I have a giant army, they have a giant army. Why would I attack them? It's like, well, maybe I hired the ninja and I got a bunch of Ronin, and it's like that will put you your ninja assassinates their daimyo, and you add a few Ronin to put your army over the top, and it's like, yeah, now they're in deep shit.
Or maybe I got a bunch of provincial forces because they're basically worthless, just hanging out, and I have 3 of them all just attack the guy first, even though I take a ton of damage, like I lose those provincial forces. But I whittle down a bunch of gunmen out of his army before I come in. And then I get, or I think someone's going to attack me. I leave a banner out there that's like a little weaker than the other ones. And there's just a fistful of Ronin waiting for someone to attack it.
Yep. People, you have no idea. So there's a lot going on in this game that's really good and sets it above the other Game Masters games. But if you play it by the rules, it becomes very time consuming with its current combat. And we'd really like to, if we could just fix that part of the game and leave the rest of the game mostly the same as it is, just making changes to support a replacement combat system. This could be like a terrific game.
Yeah, like an example would be like, because we were spitballing this a lot over the weekend among the pros. Imagine if when an army fights an army, you do the whole fucking pageantry. But if an army is attacking a province, it should be more like Small World or Vinci. Like, you just win. It's a giant army against some peasants. Maybe you take like a standard casualty and you just get it. And if maybe provinces shouldn't even be able to fight each other, because that kind of is just a waste of time. Or if they can fight each other, that's got to be like these 2 territories, you just know what happens and you move on. Like, you can't be rolling dice 2 times or 3 times in succession when 2 like bumblefuck provincial armies fight with each other in the corner of the map.
Yep. I think also, you might be able to change the combat a little bit, reduce all this heavy dice rolling, and do something quicker, like in Dune, with like the original Dune board game with the simultaneous reveals of numbers and maybe cards of some kind or something like that, or a little bit of asymmetry kind of thing, giving them a little powers, maybe just something to spice it up. Because like everyone has these 3 daimyos, which are your 3 generals of your 3 armies, and they have names like you got Tokugawa and you got all these dudes, but they're all effectively equal. There's no difference between them. It would be a little bit interesting to give each general like a little unique ability.
Yeah. This guy's got a laser gun. This guy's got a shield.
Who knows? Just to spice things up, right? You could do something like that, and then how to make the battles simultaneous. So I think you could maybe do something more along the lines of diplomacy, where people put in their orders, right? You already have this deck of cards of all your territories, right? You could maybe somehow utilize that to like indicate, everyone could set the cards down for like, where they're going to attack from or to or something, and then simultaneously reveal, and then you can resolve. If there's battles that can be resolved simultaneously, you just do it. Like, I'm fighting Rim and Joey Jojo's fighting, someone else over there. We don't need to wait for each other. Everyone just go.
Yep. Report back. Report from the front.
The only reason we can't do that with the current rules is that you're taking turns. One person does all their attacking, then the next person does all their attacking, and you can't change that because they bid for swords. So it's like the sword order is a part of the thing. It would devalue the sword order a bit if you didn't have the battle order and you had to then, this is what I'm saying is like when you edit the combat, other parts of the game now have to change in some way. Because what does turn order matter if everyone fights at the same time?
So I made an attempt, because we've been talking about this quite a bit. I will share this with all of you. It's an open document. The listener can comment on it if you want. I wrote up a full mod that's missing a few details. Like, I have not finished everything around a way to remaster. I'm not going to explain the whole thing in the episode right now, but anyone is welcome to read this. This document will make 0 sense to you if you do not know how Shogun is played. So if you want to engage with this at all, either play Shogun or at least read the rules to Shogun first. Otherwise, nothing in this document will make sense. But this is an attempt to reimagine this game to keep all those parts that are good and to make the parts that are bad as good. And doing a little bit of paper testing by myself, it felt pretty good, and I just have to fill in a few more details.
Yeah, I don't know if I like yours the most, but,
I don't know if I like mine the most either, because I want to see what you do. I want to see what our other friends do.
But yeah, I think like this is a game. It's like usually I'm the kind of person who's like, stop house ruling games. And it's like, yeah, we're not house ruling a game, actually.
Well, this is more like this old house. We're refurbishing a game.
Right. It's like this is, what everyone does when they design a new game is you take pieces of existing games and you use them when you make a new game. So it's like I'm viewing this is like, hey, make a new game, right? We're not like making a mod of Samurai Sword, right? Or Shogun or whatever, right? It's just we're saying, wow, this game is really close, but it's busted, right? Let's see if we can make a game that is, takes the good parts only from here and replace the bad parts with good parts from other games we know, or maybe a new idea entirely. And maybe because there isn't a game exactly, there are good Risk-like games like, the Dune and whatever. But they also have their own problems and they don't have some of the fun things that, Shogun has. So.
Well, I also think it's a good exercise because, we talk a lot about game design and we do a lot of reviews of games. So I'm very interested in just how far we get down this road of not trying to design a brand new game, but just approaching a game that already exists like it's a fixer-upper house, pros only, and just picking it apart and rebuilding it and seeing if we are smart or if our game design ideas are terrible.
But yeah, if this game only took like 90 minutes, or this would be one of the like.
If Shogun took 90 minutes, I think it would be up there with Root.
It would be like an A game.
A game, not an S game. Definitely an A game.
Yeah.
Because I find playing Root with people often takes 90 minutes if it's not pros.
Yeah, and Root has some Risk-like stuff to it, but not the same.
Root also is not simultaneous enough, but that we've talked about that before.
Yeah, Root, you also go around the table. Right?
Yep. So yeah, if you've never engaged with this game, if you find a copy of it, like Ikusa, I don't know how much it costs out there or anything. We're playing the old Samurai Swords that Scott has, but it is worth poking at. And if you want to follow us in our journey of trying to refurbish this, well, we'll see how long we keep doing
eBay,
it.
On eBay, someone's trying to sell an Ikusa for 143.
Ooh, that's not a good sign.
No. Let's see, Samurai Swords board game. If you just type Samurai Swords, you get actual swords. Wow, people are selling this game for a lot of money.
Huh.
Or they're setting a high price. Who knows if that's, Well,
let's
okay, good luck.
Let's hold on to your copy because if we settle on a rule set we're willing to try, we need to use that to play it.
Yeah. Good luck getting a copy of this game. I mean, there's plenty available, but everyone's charging at least like asking at least $100, and it's like, bro, you out of your mind?
I'd say then at least read the rules and you'll see what we mean if you can't get a copy of this game.
Yeah, I've tried to play just on Tabletop Simulator, and I think there are a couple, whatever modules for it on there. The problem is the simultaneous reveal is really janky, and that's the game.
Yep.
It's like that's the most important part.
Yeah.
So you can't mess that up.
Yep. So, in redesigning, I'm trying to keep that and just make combat interesting. We'll see where it goes. And I think I'm hungry.